So the webcam in the thumbnail is something that appeared on Reddit, and then someone tagged me on Reddit saying that the company needed to reach out to me, and so then they emailed me. But since then, after I tweeted it out, people have kind of picked the listing apart. But this company called Thunderr is trying to develop their first product with an Indiegogo campaign for the world's first Thunderbolt 4 webcam. And as you can tell by the renders, this is just the camera bump from an iPhone 12 with supposedly USB-C Thunderbolt 4 running out of the back of it to connect to a computer. These are all just basic renders. These aren't real webcams. These aren't, like, they don't have a working product yet. They have a video here. Like, these are just fake renders that they haven't figured out. And they have mentioned to me that their current issue is just funding to get everything working. Because in these specs, by the way, they have listed that it will support 8K 24 FPS and 4K 60, which falls in line with something like a Samsung phone or whatever can record. And I asked, okay, well, 8K 24 isn't very useful for a webcam. Can you push it to 30? And they're like, yeah, sure. If we get the resources to develop it further, we could do that, which, Now, obviously, my interest here was that I thought it would be very interesting to see, because this has been basically what we've been calling for in the first place. Felipe is saying why, but the entire streaming scene in terms of wanting a webcam has wanted a webcam that does this, that takes a phone's camera bump, extracts it out and connects it to a high-speed interface that then gives you all the full quality controls and some of the processing that phone cameras give you. And you need Thunderbolt 3/4 in order to do that, to get the uncompressed 8K or 4K video, especially at 60 FPS, to then actually interface with your computer properly. You need at least like 20 gigabits per second. You don't need 40 necessarily, but they definitely need 20. So Thunderbolt. Anyway, however, the issue is that they haven't actually designed anything. So they talk about the market need for it. You know, basically what we've said in my videos and streams and things like that, that we need something like this for the market. And they're trying to sell it fairly cheap, in that if you back it, supposedly you get one for $200, which is absurdly cheap. That's what the Brio originally costs, and it's terrible. The issue here being, we plan to raise at least $250,000 through crowdfunding, with all the proceeds going towards production, R&D, labor, and fulfillment costs. Designing a product without someone with a background in engineering or industrial design posed many challenges. Learning how to interact with CAD models and interfaces was the most challenging. There are some engineering tasks which still require completion. It stands to reason that they haven't done the actual engineering for this, because the actual back of it isn't even big enough. Like, that cable size is not big enough for a Thunderbolt 3 or 4 cable. That is like a 3.5 millimeter audio cable at best, like a terrible one. That cable is super thin. This is just, they literally got a CAD 3D model of a camera bump from a phone and put it on a stand here. I don't think they've actually designed the technology for it to work out this way. I think they have good intentions. I think they really want to make this happen, but I don't think they have realized what is involved in order to make this happen. And so the way that it's described is you have a 108 megapixel main sensor, you've got a telephoto sensor, and an ultra-wide sensor, as if you'd switch between them like on a phone. It's got 8K 24, 4K 60, and it's got phase detection autofocus. All of these things are great, but I don't think they've actually designed the technology here to actually build this product. I think they just know that something like this is theoretically possible, and that maybe if they just get a bunch of money, they can find someone to build it. But I really don't believe that they have figured out how to make it work. And so I think that that's going to hold them back. Yeah. It's still in the concept phase. I don't think you can fairly ask for money. Granted, they're asking for less than the Genki Shadowcast, which raised $4+ million to clone a $6 capture card and sell it for $50. So, you know, whatever. But I don't think you can fairly ask for money at this point if you don't even have a clue how the technology can work. Because the issue is that The way phone cameras work and look so good is they have computational photography happening. They are the reason you see phone camera improvements happen generationally tied to the processor improvement is the phone processor is actually super key in the way the camera works, because the phone has the specific, fixed function processes to decode the cameras and to work with the camera tech to then, like, you can't just slap a higher quality camera on an existing processor if you're already at the top tier, because you have to wait on the latest Snapdragon or Exynos or whatever. And so all of that computational photography for the exposure, for the the way that it looks on the image, for the compensation for the tiny sensor, all of that comes in the part of having the phone camera doing all of this software work, which is why if you get a weird Android camera or Android phone that has a pretty crappy camera, even though it's high spec, it's because they didn't develop the software for it on top of the hardware. But to just give yourself 3 camera sensors on a high-speed bus without the software / technology to decode it, nothing will happen. Like, if I literally just strip off the camera bump of a phone and try to rig it up to a Thunderbolt interface, nothing will happen. I do think the idea of having those different angles could be beneficial, and especially if you have 40 gigabits per second, theoretically getting, all of them to stream at the same time would be pretty cool. But given that they literally have 3 backers after 9 days and that they're still in the concept phase, I don't think they're going to get there. Now, that is to say, I still believe that this kind of idea needs pursuing. I think someone needs to figure out how to get phone cameras to work as native cameras to Windows. And the issue is that everyone settles for the Droid Cam X, the Epoch Cam, the NDI or whatever. That doesn't look very good. I don't know how many people have actually tested it, and I'm going to fire it up here on the fly. But those of you who have actually used the phone streaming options to your computer will probably know that it doesn't look the same as it does in your phone. Now, it can still look kind of good, but the quality, if I switch over here, do I still have an NDI scene? iPad, I don't, never mind. But regardless, if you've used those, you know that the quality doesn't look as good as you could make it look with the native phone just recording directly. And it loses some of the computational photography stuff. You lose a lot of it on top of the fact that in order to send it wirelessly over USB, you have to pre-encode it with H.264, and you get compression artifacts and latency issues and all sorts of issues. And so that's not the end-all be-all solution. It's great. It's an easy just pop it up if you need to do a meeting. That's great. But for content creation and for high-quality video work, that's not the actual final answer. So I do think this kind of idea needs to be pursued, but it needs to be pursued with engineers who have actually figured out how to make it work first, not just a concept and asking for money. I guess that's where I'm going at. Or can we get a 1-inch sensor webcam? So actually, the, what's it called? The Insta360 1R has a 1-inch model, and they released webcam software over USB for the 1R that I believe works with the 1-inch model. So this is the camera right here. They have a 1-inch model of this action camera. Now, it's an action camera, so it's fixed focus. It's got a super wide angle field of view, and all of those issues. And I don't think it has native HDMI out, so by sticking with the USB option, you are still getting super compressed H.264 video or whatever. But that's a start. So I think if we get something more like this to then turn into a webcam, you could be pretty good. However, this camera's $550. That's too expensive for a webcam. So I don't know what the answer is. I do think we need to see some change in innovation, and it's clear that Logitech isn't doing it. Like, the StreamCam and the Brio still suffer from the same issues that all of their webcams since 2009 have faced. So I will say there are new webcams launching next month that'll be pretty cool. I don't know that they're the end-all be-all, but they are a next step that I would like to see, and I highly recommend you stay tuned for that video. But yeah. My camera disconnected for a second there. That was weird. Oh, it did it again. What is happening? Okay, that was weird. Maybe it overheated. Whatever. Something I also wanted to mention, just to wrap up this topic. I would also think the Sony RX series could do something. So, the Sony ZV-1 that I reviewed forever ago, that is a great option. And supposedly they have released an updated version of their Sony webcam software and updated firmware for that camera to have higher resolution webcam support. They haven't been able to get me another review sample to try it out, but theoretically that kind of camera that has a roughly 1-inch sensor and has the cool autofocus stuff would be the option. I just haven't gotten around, they just haven't sent me one yet. So there's that. Have you reviewed the OBS bot cameras yet? I have not. So one final note I wanted to say on this, actually two final notes, because someone asked if I used the Sony webcam software. So we did try that out on top of, well, it wasn't functional when I reviewed the Sony ZV-1 yet. And then I tried it out in a Streamer Newz, and like all of the webcam software for mirrorless cameras, it uses a photo tethering preview. And so it uses a low resolution, low frame rate thing that's meant to preview your photo taking. Supposedly they have improved it specifically for the ZV-1, but not for the rest of the cameras. And overall, it doesn't really work great at all. And it was super unreliable when I tested it. But the final note I want to say is that when it comes, Chandler, I have P.O. Box in the description of most of my videos. Otherwise, shoot me an email or hit me up on Discord. But when it comes to your resources for your stream, if you have the choice between using your phone as a webcam or using it for something like Touch Portal to control your stream, I will recommend going with Touch Portal every time. Having your phone streaming videos for hours on end overheats it, drains the battery, can possibly burn in the, ruin the screen a little bit, reduces the life of your phone compared to using it for something like Touch Portal or what have you. And so I will always recommend spending $40 on a decent webcam. If you missed it, we had an episode of the AFK chat stream where I went through a bunch of budget webcams and made them look nice and found which ones were worth it. You can get some pretty good ones for $30. I will always recommend going that route over using your phone as a webcam, because unless you're buying a secondary phone for it, in which case it won't look as good as your main phone, you're gonna burn out your phone pretty quick.